Tighten up my meat.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words.
Mike Pounds.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid.
Anonymous, really anonymous.
I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words.
God bless the United States.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. We got a great show for you guys today on this Wednesday. It is hump day. Half the week is over, but the insanity never ends. It is infinite. There we go. Infinite insanity that we have. So here's what we're going to do. So we got a lot of stories for you guys today. First, we're going to talk about Donald Trump going on Fox and Friends for another ridiculous interview, another follow-up. That's fun. We've got Trump versus Jim Acosta again. We have a study that debunks one of the newest talking points, a study. So it's like a study on a study that debunks one of the Republican talking points against extending the $600 unemployment benefits. We've got fundamentalist religion. So we're going to go back and have a religious discussion here. This is very interesting. A study about that. And if we can get to it, the climate crisis. So how we're all screwed. All right. Anyway, so that's sort of a synopsis of what we're going to talk about today. First, I want to open the show by thanking Sarge Tech for pushing my channel on the damage report. So thank you. John and I consider him a good friend. And, you know, I've been trying to get him on the podcast, right? Trying to get him on the show. And he's like, I'm swamped. I would love to do it. And I can understand why, because John actually juggles a lot of things. Obviously co-hosting the main Young Turks main show, and then doing his own show and all the different projects that he's involved in. And so hopefully one of these days we'll catch him at a time where he's not juggling 5 different things at once. But thank you for pushing me on the damage report. I appreciate that. Also, great news. Congresswoman Cori Bush, not going to be in the show, but just the fact that she won her primary and defeated Lacey Clay. You realize that they had a 90-year, the Clay family had that seat for 90 years. They would pass it on like it's some sort of, inherited spot. Not anymore. Now, Cori Bush. And then also Rashida Tlaib. I love this. A lot of the articles are like, Rashida Tlaib survives primary challenge. No, she crushed him by at least 20 points. No, Rashida Tlaib still in Congress. The squad has survived. Not only that, the squad has grown. So adding in another progressive into there, and hopefully we'll add even more. So it's awesome. John is a producer. I believe so, but I don't necessarily know. I'm assuming so. Let's see. Tabasco on Doritos. Uh, I have a stuffy nose mostly because I have sinus issues related to my heartburn, to my GERD. So there's that. But thank you. I appreciate that anyway. Let's see. Rashida demolished her opponent. Absolutely, Dana. Totally did. Totally did. Progressives don't get enough good days. This feels nice. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Ravaging Wolverine, who said that comment. I want to thank you for donating to our PayPal towards a computer. So I'm considering. I'm not sure, but maybe considering doing a crowdfunding to get a better, like, to upgrade my computer, my stream computer massively. Because what we have, I mean, I got problems with desync, right? Not in the live streams, but in like the recorded videos. And so I get an issue where like there's a freeze during the stream, and my recording software then somehow desyncs the audio with the video and then takes forever to render. I got to fix that or wait for YouTube, the recording. Of course, the YouTube recording is a little less high quality, and so all that stuff. We have got that issue. The fact that I cannot stream to multiple things at once without causing those desyncs, without like running out of CPU power. That's why we're not streaming. Like, I want to stream the show on Twitch, but I can't necessarily do that because of technical limitations. But yes, thank you. I do appreciate that. And I don't know. I'm just thinking about maybe raising some money for that in order to do that. Man, it's going to be it's going to be an expensive computer. Oh, boy. John's Venn diagram of desire asks, hey, someone can explain to me if Jeff's still part of TYT. I am. We're part of the TYT network. So we've always been a part of TYT network since the start of the channel. What it is, we just did a little rebrand, changing the name, putting some, basically distinguishing ourselves from TYT. For example, Humanist Report. He's the Humanist Report. It's part of the TYT network and all that stuff. So, and it's, Ring of Fire, same thing, right? Part of the TYT network, but also the Ring of Fire. And so I want to be known as Waldorf Nation and not as just a division of TYT. And so it's a way to make a better name for ourselves for this channel. So, and make a name for myself as well. Okay. So hopefully that explains things. For a computer, I'd expect around 3 to 3,500. Yeah, I was looking at processors today. And so, it's been a while. I've actually have a history of building my own computers, my own computers for gaming and streaming. Although, because I've never had a good budget, I've always built them on the cheap. So, refurbished parts, things like that. And so it's like, okay, build one for $1,500. That does pretty well, right? i9 32 gigs of, oh my god, that would be a super powerhouse, Sarge. I would love to be able to do that, but that's a lot of money. I mean, I would be asking for a lot of money because I certainly couldn't afford it just on my own. Even contributing a significant part of my revenue, I would love to do that. So I don't know. I might consider doing this fundraiser, but I again use Restream to stream to YouTube and Twitch. I already have something that I use, but maybe I'll look into something like that as well. All right. Anyway, enough of that stuff. We should get to the stories because we've got a lot to cover. So, thank you though. Let's do it.
This country has done a great job on the corona, and I will say, the people that have worked on it have been amazing what we've done.
That was President Donald Trump bragging about how great of a job that he has done on the corona, despite all, of course, evidence to the contrary. Yeah. Okay, so now that's part of a rambling series of BS statements made during an interview with, as you can see, Fox and Friends, after the disaster that was the Axios interview with Jonathan Swan. The difference between these interviews, of course, is that Donald Trump got a lot more pushback on his bullcrap claims, of course, like this.
From ventilators where we had nothing to making them now for the world. You know, we're supplying the world now with ventilators. And you go back 4 months, we didn't have any. And it's a complicated piece of machinery. It's big. It's expensive. The job we've done has been an amazing job. My view is the schools should open. This thing's going away. It will go away like things go away. And my view is that schools should be open. If you look at children are almost, and I would almost say definitely, but almost immune from this disease. I mean, literally, they are virtually immune from this problem.
Okay, that's a lot of stupid condensed into a very small amount of space. It's like the black hole of stupid. It just kind of, it's very, very dense, or even like a neutron star. Okay, anyway, enough of that. So let's break it down. Let's talk about ventilators, right? So now, look, it's actually true that Donald Trump has been doing great on ventilators, right? He's the king of ventilators. Okay, so now there's a problem with that. I'll get to that. So no, this is according to a report in ProPublica. The Trump administration has been sending a lot of ventilators around the world. From their report, White House officials have pushed the U.S. Agency for International Development to purchase thousands of expensive ventilator devices from U.S. companies and to donate them abroad. According to internal documents, emails seen by or described to ProPublica, and interviews with officials. So you get the White House saying, let's crank out these ventilators and let's send them abroad. Let's do it. One USAID official recently referred to the project in an internal email as the POTUS donation of ventilators, using an acronym, of course, for President of the United States, POTUS, all that, right? So now you're thinking, wait a minute, how's that a bad thing? We're giving ventilators, right? We're building the ventilators, so that means we're like keeping jobs and we're donating them. How can that possibly be a bad thing? Well, here we go. The effort, according to the report, has been marked by dysfunction, shocker, with little clarity on how countries are chosen or how ventilators are allocated. A USAID memo seen by ProPublica shows equipment donated to wealthy nations that typically do not get foreign aid, such as fellow NATO countries, and a few locations ill-equipped to use the devices that require round-the-clock staffing and regular maintenance. Oh, right. That. Got it. It gets worse, as it always does. The administration's decisions on ventilator distribution appear to have little correlation to the number of coronavirus deaths or infections in a country. Honduras, for example, which is receiving a total of 100 ventilators, had about 72 confirmed cases per 100,000 on June 11th, the day the plan was approved by a senior State Department official, according to WHO data. Neighboring El Salvador, which is set to receive 600 ventilators, had about 51 cases per 100,000 people at that point. Vietnam, also set to receive 100 ventilators, though the country has just a few hundred cases in all and no deaths. Okay, so wait. Countries with more cases somehow get less ventilators, and yet countries with, less cases get more ventilators. Does that make any sense to you guys? It's almost as if they're just handing out arbitrary numbers of ventilators to other countries in order to say, hey, look at how great we are at giving people ventilators. They wouldn't do that, right? Now, public health experts say, and this again is one of the other problems, that without carefully assessing each country's healthcare expertise and then following through to ensure hospitals can keep the machines running, the donations could go to waste or even risk patients' lives. Because, of course, most countries actually, in reality, do not need ventilators as much as they need to fund nurses, PPE, and simple oxygen supplies. So, I mean, not to say that they don't need ventilators or that no one needs ventilators, right? It's just they're for the most extreme cases. And you would actually need to do some real research and targeting and to figure out just how much people need, how many ventilators people need or what they need, and then target the aid accordingly. It seems like this is the equivalent of riding around in a limousine and throwing dollar bills out the back. Oh, right. That's Donald Trump. Awesome. Okay. So now, that's just one bullshit claim. Now we go to Trump's claim about children, which is even worse. You heard how he said that they're virtually immune to the virus. While it is true that children are less susceptible than adults to the virus, they can still get it and they can still transmit it to others in their household or within their own communities. Researchers in South Korea, for example, have found that children between the ages of 10 and 19 can transmit COVID-19 within a household just as much as adults, according to research published in the U.S. CDC and Prevention Journal, Emerging Infectious Diseases. So they also found that children, lower than 9 years old, still can transmit the virus fairly effectively, just a little bit less than those between 10 to 19. So that's the problem, by the way, with sending them back to school. They are a vector of disease. Only somebody with a very surface level of thinking, a smooth-brained Trump supporter, that can agree that it's a great idea to send kids back to school because, they get sick less than adults with coronavirus. But yes, they can still get the virus and still spread it around just as much as adults, even if they suffer from less symptoms. And it kills less children, right? It's really dumb. It's not smart. So now look, I want to get kids back into school. Definitely, right? And look, if we had a less of an infection rate, right? If we had limited cases, we could consider that, right? But right now, we have no control of the virus. It's running wild. It's not just going to go away like things go away, as Trump claims, right? And he's been claiming that since the beginning. He's still wrong. He was always wrong. And he's getting called out for it, of course. First, again, by the media and now by social media. For example, one person saying, Donald Trump is still saying that COVID will go away. He's also saying kids are virtually immune to the problem. I have 2 grandchildren and both of them got it. And it wasn't just sniffles. Guess they missed out on the virtual immunity. Another person says, so false. They've got the worst response in the developed world, responding to Trump's doing a great job on the corona, right? 156,000 dead, nearing 5 million cases, which is a huge undercount, they say, as cases are 1/10 to 1/3 of the U.S. population and an ignorant president. Another person says, ABC just interviewed a child who lost both of his parents to COVID-19. If schools reopen while COVID is still on a tear, we're going to hear more stories like that, only they'll be more tragic because the orphans will know that they are the ones who brought the virus home to their parents and, of course, grandparents and family members. It's just disastrous. And then one more here. This person says, the only thing that will go away will be the lives and futures of a lot of kids who will get sick and possibly die, because children will die. It may be a smaller amount, but the children will die. It will die. They will die. And not to mention their parents and close relatives. It's so crazy it defies my ability to process. Imagine the PTSD that kids will make, who make their parents or loved ones sick with COVID will feel. It could ruin their lives. And let's be honest, Donald Trump is fine with that. Just as long as it's not his life that's affected, right? As long as it's not him, well, then he doesn't care, right? Doesn't care at all. And that's really at the core of who Donald Trump is. All right. So let's go to Jim Acosta. I so love that. It's the best. President Trump is raging at Jim Acosta, the chief White House correspondent, following a report that quoted a source on the coronavirus task force that says that Trump has a deep misunderstanding of the severity of the pandemic. Well, I would say that he just doesn't care. I mean, sure, bank on stupidity, because generally when you're dealing with Donald Trump, stupidity often wins. But there's also apathy and lack of empathy. And so there's that. So now let's get to the tweet here. Trump earlier on Twitter said, CNN has no sources on the task force. Their sources are made up. Pure fiction. Jim Acosta, it's a fake reporter. Everyone I don't like is fake news. All right. So now let me give you some context on the report, right? So now the report said, and it was published earlier this morning, it said, according to the source, referring to the president, he still doesn't get it. He does not get it. And this follows the disastrous interview with Axios, Jonathan Swan, where, you remember you're shuffling around like papers, and he's like, no, you don't understand. We're actually doing the best in the world. He said all sorts of insane things. And so that led to a lot of people to be like, he does not understand this virus because he doesn't want to understand this virus. Now, that's not what the source is getting, right? Or saying. So, look, in response to that, right, getting it would require not only being somewhat intelligent, right, but also possessing a shred of empathy. That is a trait that has likely been beaten and shamed out of Donald Trump as a child. That's just my speculation, of course. But the source said those in attendance had a difficult time convincing the president about the importance of wearing masks to curb the spread of the coronavirus. So now Donald Trump is now coming out and saying to wear a mask, right? We're going to wear a mask. We got to wear a mask. Patriots wear masks. And yet still behind the scenes, he does not wear a mask. I'm just saying. He still tries not to wear a mask. And then apparently when people start urging him to do so, quote, he starts talking about something else, the source said, adding, his mood lately is not a happy mood. Oh, he's very sad. Sad. Baby. Okay. Here's the thing. He shouldn't be happy, right? Nobody in the government should be happy. Okay. But the problem is, because we have a lot of, we have economic issues, major economic upheaval. We have this virus that has killed over 150,000 Americans. It's infecting a lot of people. And so, yes, there's not a whole lot to be happy about. Our elections have been disrupted. Our political process has been disrupted. Our lives have been disrupted. There's nothing to be happy about. Okay. Thing is, Donald Trump's upset for all the wrong reasons. I mean, look, yes, he probably hates coronavirus. Yeah, of course, right? He despises the fact that it's still spreading around the country and that some states, of course, are rolling back the reopenings because they're having cases go up and that death toll, of course. But it's not because humans are suffering, right? Oh, the people are suffering. That hurts me as an American, as a citizen, as a fellow human being. It hurts my heart, right? No, no, not with Donald Trump. No, the only reason he hates this is because it really got in the way of his possible reelection, right? It started affecting him at the polls. It looks bad. All he cares about while people are suffering is winning. He's a sociopath. And no, look, I don't feel like I'm strawmanning him, right? In case you're thinking that I'm doing that argument, because what we've seen from this president is no empathy and also no policy to actually slow the deaths of coronavirus. None. But he even said in a recent interview, it is what it is. Oh, it is what it is. Great. Now, look, I know I keep going back to this every time I talk about comparisons to Donald Trump. You're probably sick of it, but what about Obama? What if Obama said this about Ebola, right? Or even something that's, like Benghazi, right? It is what it is. I mean, what are we going to do about Benghazi, right? It is what it is. Or even 9/11, God forbid, right? You know what would happen? Heads would explode. Oh my God, I can't believe how much Obama hates Americans. Oh, wow. Thing is, though, I actually don't think Trump hates America or Americans. I mean, okay, he hates leftists. He hates Democrats. He hates anybody that doesn't agree with. Okay, fair enough. The media, okay, but as far as everyone that's left that he doesn't actually hate, right? Well, that would leave mainly his own voters or people that are just not involved at all, right? So he doesn't hate them, but he doesn't care about them either. Even his own voters. The only thing he cares about is, are they going to go vote for me? And that's about it. And I think that's obvious because of his own stance when it comes to mail-in voting. He's willing to risk to risk the lives of his own voters to stop people from being able to mail in ballots. He's like, no, I want you guys to go to the polls, right? Risking yourself, risking your lives to coronavirus, just so, we can screw over the people that I don't like. And that's what that is, right? Even his populist right-wing stances, like the stimulus, right? Which I guess isn't really a right-wing stance, but his populist stances, right? Like, for example, I want to give people more of a stimulus, like a bigger stimulus check, right? That's just him buying votes. I mean, yes, he'll buy votes, and then the economy might get a little bit better, right, in the short term. That helps him just for long enough for people to feel more secure during the voting. Look, I have no doubt that he would be railing against stimulus right now if a Democrat were president. I'm just saying. And so it's all about him. But of course, Donald Trump says, oh, no, it's not that. No. This person that's on the coronavirus task force, totally fake. With, again, no evidence, right? So now, interestingly enough, that same source noted that Vice President Pence does get it, but that he appears, quote, conflicted in his dealings with the task force and that he understands their concerns while at the same time tempering his comments to avoid getting on the wrong side of the president. Yeah, that actually sounds like a pretty realistic appraisal of the situation. Mike Pence is not known for his bravery, right? Mike Pence sits back and basically does nothing. Wow, what a profile in courage. And I know, look, Mike Pence has some pretty insane views, and he's by far not an intellectual, but he's not politically stupid. He's just not, right? So what he's doing is like trying to walk a fine line here between himself, Trump, and the task force. Okay. And so, I mean, I don't envy that position, but he did sign on for that. And I think, everything that we've said against Mike Pence over the years, he is at very least a competent bad person, right? He's very competent at being terrible, unlike Donald Trump. And so overall, though, this is not a flattering thing for the president. So as usual, he's going to attack the reporter. He's going to attack Jim Acosta, who reported on this source which of course will will no doubt make his supporters very happy that he's going after the fake news media as they die of coronavirus. At least they've got their bread and circuses as they choke on their own fluids. Yay. But you're going to own those libs. All right. Anyway, so I'm going to take a quick break here. We're going to come back. We got the Republican talking points on unemployment. The newest one that I'm going to dismantle. So that'll be fun. Stay right here. Round the Nation. We'll be right back after this break.
Tighten up my meat.
Mike Pounds.
I like my meat tight.
Welcome back to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. Sorry, not TYT Nation, Waldorf Nation. Boy, that's a habit I'm going to need to break. All right, anyway. So welcome back to the show. I'm going to read some super chats here in a minute, but first I want to thank some patrons. I want to thank Colleen Hayes and Gail Madera and channel members DLB Swampy and 44 Boofy. So thank you for signing up. Hopefully I said that right. Independent Progressive Media, that's how you help. Patreon, channel memberships, PayPal, all that stuff. And again, still considering that, GoFundMe. We'll see. We'll see. All right, anyway. Super chats here. Another way to help the show. Dango Bangle says, we're on the East Coast, still without power, sending love. Sending love back. Hopefully you guys get your power back soon and stay safe and all that stuff. Sarge Tech just sent a list of stuff that I should probably write down for a stream computer. I will copy that down. Thank you. Jewel says supporting progressive voices. God knows this country's fucked. I agree with you. And thank you for that. I tell you one thing, what I'm doing here is I'm actually reading Michael Brooks' new book, right, that had come out. It's so far, I haven't got far into it, but it's pretty good. It's, of course, a way to fight the intellectual dark web and the pipeline to being a right-winger. And so, yeah, looking forward to that, getting through that book and, really taking some of the lessons that Brooks had learned in fighting the right wing. All right. Let's dive in. We've got a study to talk about. All right. Now, as Congress continues to negotiate on a new coronavirus stimulus package, which I believe has to involve a extension of expanded federal unemployment benefits, that is something that now I'm seeing reports where Mitch McConnell is now opening the door to this. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because they keep getting proven wrong by all these studies that say, hey, it turns out the extra $600 is actually pretty helpful, and more importantly, does not discourage people from going back to work. So now, in recent days, a lot of Republicans and White House spokespeople have been using a study by the University of Chicago. So there were economists that did this study, and they found that more than 2/3 of unemployment claimants received more in benefits than they did from actually working. And so Republicans, they jumped on this and they said, well, hey, that's why we need to cut it, because you're paying people more to sit home, well, than you would, if they're working. Now, for example, this is Rob Portman here, right? And he said, according to studies that have been done, including by the University of Chicago, about 68% of the people on unemployment insurance are making more money on unemployment insurance than they were making at work. Okay. And then U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin also citing this University of Chicago study to say that we need to stop paying people more to stay home than they made at work, because it is a disincentive. So now the point is that they're trying to make, and not necessarily explicitly, is that, hey, if you're making more in unemployment than you are working, then why would you go back to work? Basically implying that a lot of these people are who lost their jobs through no fault of their own are just lazy and they want to sit around and collect their government benefits, right? Now that's consistent with what we've heard from Republicans before, obviously, but I'm the one that's saying, and I don't hear a lot of people saying this when they try to make this point, even when generally we all agree with it. I want people to stay home. I want people to sit home and collect benefits. You know why? Because it's a fucking pandemic. Because people are getting sick because they have to go out into public and go back to work, and sometimes unsafe conditions. So yeah, I want people to sit home. I want people to get government money, right? And by the way, insurance, unemployment insurance is essentially your own money, right? You pay into that so that when you lose your job, or if you lose your job, something happens to your job, it goes out of business, that you still have money coming in, you have an income, and you can pay the bills, right? So this extra $600, of course, which is in question, is an additional benefit due to coronavirus. And again, it's to make sure that people can pay their bills, because generally unemployment does not pay that much. Where they come up with these $600 from is actually Democrats originally wanted just to pay people 100% of their wages, right? 100% of what they get if they were working, right? That turned out to be a little complicated because, areas, of course, vary, pay rates varied, and they said, look, it'd take too much, right? So we'll just go $600 across the board. This is an emergency. Let's do it. Okay. And so Republicans are now saying, well, okay, now that's too much. We really need to cut back. We need to cut back. And so now here's the thing. That Chicago study, not necessarily wrong. The numbers are right? When you're looking at straight pay, unemployment benefits for a lot of workers, okay, a little bit more than what you would normally make for straight pay. Thing is, another study came by and they looked at those numbers. They looked at what Chicago found and they said, no, it's a bit more complicated, right? A little bit more complicated. In fact, the new paper by Groundwork Collaborative's Maroki Sawo and the National Employment Law Project's Michelle Evermore compared unemployment payments with what workers had likely earned in their previous jobs, according to industry-level wage compensation data. Unlike the Chicago study, the new paper includes non-wage benefits in its comparison, which amounted to 28% of employment claimants' total work compensation on average. Sawo and Evermore wrote, our inclusion of non-wage compensation is driven by our concern that measures of wage compensation do not paint a complete picture of all that workers lose out when they are laid off. So, of course, this makes sense, right? They said that many workers lose more than just wages in unemployment. They lose employer contributions to health insurance and paid leave and retirement benefits. In fact, 60% of unemployment claimants worked in industries where average total compensation exceeded what the former employers could receive in unemployment benefits. So you have a majority of workers that have actually lost out when you factor that in. So, yeah, they're making less overall. And so, sure, when you look at only straight compensation, you can say, oh my God, look at all these people getting paid more, right? We should reduce that benefit. No. No, they're actually making less because they're not getting benefits. They're not getting health care. In fact, millions of people are losing their employer-sponsored health insurance. Millions of people who need that employer-sponsored health insurance. And so I would, of course, make an argument that maybe we should give Medicare to everybody, regardless of age, employment status, or anything like that, because healthcare is an actual human right. But unfortunately, both Democrats and Republicans don't agree with that. And I'm talking about the politicians. Voters overwhelmingly, especially in the Democratic side, 88% of Democrats want a single-payer system, Medicare for all. 47% of Republicans want Medicare for all. So there's that. And so now, that said, going back to the paper, they said that these individuals are likely receiving less, not more, in unemployment than they were in their former jobs, even after accounting for the $600 per week benefits boost. And ironically, that's why people are like, look, if it were safe, I would love to get back to work. The issue here is it's not safe, for one. And even if it were, a lot of the jobs are actually gone. A lot of jobs have actually closed permanently. Yes, there are temporary jobs as well, or I should say temporary closures for many jobs too. But there's a lot of small businesses that have end up going bankrupt. They're not coming back, and even so, even if they did, demand is down from what it was before. Consumer spending has gone up a little bit, yes, after it bottomed out, probably as a result of these benefits, but will likely decrease if there is no extension because people will not have the money to spend. Again, when you look at spending and how it goes back and circulates back into the economy, 100% of these benefits end up being recirculated back into the economy. It's not like these people on unemployment are hoarding it. And of course, that leads me to the ironic, right, attack from conservatives, right, who are like, well, it's not my fault you couldn't save those unemployment benefits. You're getting $2,400 a month. I mean, you should have been able to save that. No. Most of those benefits, the large majority of those benefits, are actually being spent back into the economy, which helps the economy. When they lose that, guess what? They lose their ability to spend and stimulate the economy, which means, less demand, which means less jobs. And not only that, but when you look at the housing crisis that is really basically here, okay? And that's why, of course, Donald Trump and the Republicans are now, less Republicans and more Donald Trump. He's saying, eviction moratorium. We need to stop evictions. Right? And so you really can't do that. I mean, yes, you can put a moratorium on evictions for now, but those who are starting the process who can't afford to pay their rents now, you think they can afford to pay back rent later? No, we need a rent freeze, and we need a UBI. We need all that stuff, as I've explained before. But anyway, point is, if you stop the benefits, you're going to hurt the economy. So now you guys know how this goes. Okay. Now, it said 60%, right? What about the other 40, right? So that 40% of people, likely a big chunk of people getting overpaid, right? Right? Well, what about that? Well, let's look into it, right? So now jobless pay did surpass wages for the other 40% of workers, but it's partly because those workers had been working either part-time or worked in very low-wage sectors. So now that extra $600 did apply to everyone who received a benefit, even if it was a partial one for a part-time job. So these people got more if they had worked because, again, they either worked less hours or got paid much less at their jobs. So now that kind of makes the argument that 40% of American workers probably should get paid more. I'm just saying, right, for their labor. That said, there's no evidence that these people are refusing to go back to work or that these benefits are a disincentive. And that's really the crux of the Republican argument, is that they're disincentivizing people to go back to work. And we should stop paying them so much. No, economists don't even agree with that narrative. Even the authors of the Chicago study, they came back later after this review and said, yeah, no, our methodology did not count that. And if you did include those benefits, then yes, that would reduce the percentage of wages replaced by unemployment compensation. And so they agree with that. So, oops. Look, with Republicans, with conservatives, it's all about muddying the waters. Why? Because they don't want to help people. Now, you might be wondering then, okay, but it had to, like that $600 benefit, that had to get through Congress somehow, right? Why? Well, my opinion, it's because it had massive corporate welfare behind it, that bill. And it was at a time where the stock market was literally, well, not literally, but on fire, right? It was crashing. And so now the donors have their bailouts. The market has, for the most part, stabilized. Now, and that, they're also asking for corporate immunity. And so if they get that, I mean, that's going to go to their plan, right? So what they want to do is they want to do corporate immunity, right, for coronavirus. They want to reduce benefits and then send the kids back to school so they don't have to pay for childcare. And that is part of the overall goal to get people to go back to work instead of course, doing the right thing, going hard against the virus while financially supporting the American people as we drive the cases down. And so, again, that overall goal is to pay people less and make them go back to work, but it's not actually going to work because generally the American people and a lot of businesses are really wary about reopening, even though, and again, polls reflect this. The majority of the American people say that it's not yet time we are reopening too quickly. We need to take our time and focus on this virus first before we start reopening. And so if we take our time, it's the only way we're going to actually be able to beat this virus is if we do what's necessary. And that's unfortunately politically inconvenient, especially for Republicans. Okay. Let's move on. All right. There's a pretty interesting new study out that suggests that people who have a lesser understanding of their own religion or religious texts tend to be more supportive of religious violence. So now this was recently published in Social, Psychological, and Personality Science. And I find it really, really fascinating. So what they took here, or I'm sorry, what they did is they basically took people who profess to be pretty religious, right? And what they did is that they gave them a list of stories, concepts, and people that they said were all in the religious texts, whether or not they were actually in there, right? And so some of the people and concepts, they said, oh, yeah, they're in the Bible, and they actually were, but then some were not, right? So now the participants were then asked to indicate how familiar they were with each particular item, like concept, story, or people, right? Or whatever, right? And so they could be asking, hey, are you familiar with, like the fact that Vin Diesel is part of the Bible or whatever, right? That's a stupid example, but you kind of get it. And somebody who, is more ignorant of what's in the text, but is a fervent believer is like, oh yeah, no, totally. Fast and Furious, Canaan part of the Bible. Definitely. And Jesus actually won that race. Okay, but wait a minute here. That's not true. That's not in the Bible. And so now the trick is, again, like I said, the people were not there. So you might be wondering, what does that have to do with violence? Well, the researchers found that those who claimed to be more familiar with concepts that did not exist also tended to report being more supportive of religious aggression. In other words, individuals who claim to have knowledge of fictitious religious concepts were more likely to agree with statements such as, I would shoot someone if I believed God wanted me to. And statements like, the modern world needs a no mercy attitude towards the wicked. It's almost as if ignorance breeds both fear and violence. Weird. Who knew? Now, a study author, Daniel Jones, an assistant professor at the University of Nevada, Reno, said this, quote, although many quote the Christian Bible, few have read it. Thus, religious books are often incorrectly cited or cited in a way that serves personal prejudices and or distorted worldviews. Not only do people pick and choose the stories of a religious book to support their worldview, they inaccurately attribute messages and interpretations to that holy book. So, boy, one of the greatest examples here is the abortion thing. Okay? So now, right-wing conservatives who have not read the Bible, okay, religious conservatives, the Bible says abortion bad. No, if you read the Bible, it actually tells you the story of, I forget the actual name of the guy. I know, right? Ironic. Okay. But anyway, it basically tells you how to create an abortion tonic that you would give your significant other, wife, if you believe that she's having an affair and it will cause her to miscarry. Or miscarry, right? That's in the Bible. That is a story. Okay. And so, actually, it's pro-abortion. But hey, if you don't read the Bible, you actually wouldn't know that. Okay. And so it's actually more of it's not a biblical concept. It's more of a social, like, culture war thing. Okay. So now, Daniel Jones continues. He says, we wanted to determine the consequences of this tendency towards overconfidence in religious scripture, mainly because that overconfidence probably stems from, no, I'm super religious. I believe in God. Oh, really? Do you know what's in the Bible? Oh, no. I mean, yes, you totally do. Oh, that's totally a real thing. Yep. The Bible Reloaded, Fast and Furious edition. Totally, 100%. It's in there. I know. Are you saying that I'm not faithful enough? Are you saying that I don't believe enough in the Bible? How dare you, sir? How dare you? Numbers 5:11, 31. Thank you, Jesus. And so, look, that overconfidence, that is a little bit of a problem, and I think that's okay. Well, you know what? We'll get to that here. So now, I'm sure some of you are wondering about the methodology. Okay. Now, for their study, Jones and colleagues recruited 409 American participants, 351 students from a university in Iran, so there's the Muslims, and 209 individuals living on the Juarez-El Paso border region between Mexico and the United States. So very different areas, okay? So again, as a synopsis, they presented people with lists of things that they said were in the holy books. However, many items in the lists, such as the Army 17 and Soren's Temple, I have no idea what these are, did not actually appear in the Bible. The Iranian sample completed a similar task regarding concepts from the Quran. And again, people who are ignorant of their own holy book, both Christians and Muslims, supported more violent and reactionary claims. So now, that is, again, super fascinating. And as some of you point out, more atheists have read the Bible than Christians. And generally, we know the joke, right? People who tend to, there's a name for people who read the Bible, atheists. I agree with that. That said, Jones cautioned against being overcritical of actual religion. In fact, he told Sci Post, overconfidence in what you think God supports or what Scripture says is toxic. Thus, humility is a critical feature that is needed to bring out the best and most benevolent aspects of religion, which can be, again, a very positive thing. And so, it makes me really think of the Christian left, which does exist, but tends to be, I think, minimalized, right? And sort of ignored and slightly ostracized by the general embrace of atheism or agnosticism within the progressive movement. I think that we should absolutely welcome our Christian leftist brothers and sisters because they are a part of our movement, and they actually do bring a lot more focus of humanity as well as logic and reason, all of which are super important to a movement that should be based on humans, people, humanism. Okay, so now in this way, I'm sorry. He continues with this by saying, further, although overclaiming is toxic, actual religious knowledge or admitting what you did not know has a reverse effect, such that it correlates with a more peaceful disposition. So the more accurately you know your book, your holy book, it suggested that it leads to more of a peaceable solution, right? A peaceable disposition. And that's a good thing. So in this way, knowing true versus false stories in your holy book associated with peaceful attitudes, whereas claiming familiarity with false stories from one's holy book is associated with violent attitudes. Again, super interesting. Very interesting. And so for me, it kind of suggests that it's not necessarily religion itself that's the enemy. It's ignorance. Ignorance has always been the enemy, right? And in place of knowledge, people are able to bend religion to suit their own prejudices. Or you have people who are more, definitely more knowledgeable about religion, but are not good people that will use people's ignorance against others in order to solidify their own power bases. And we can definitely see that in more organized religion. Okay. And so now what's interesting is that there's talking about prejudices, right? One of those prejudices among Christianity, right, is that people of other religions are violent. Specifically, among the right wing Christians, is that Islam is violent, right? While Christianity is both amazing, wonderful, and perfect. No, that's not true for either, right? Those things are both absurd claims, okay? I hate to break it to you, but there are instances of Christians and Muslims being deeply violent. And also both being incredibly peaceful as well. I mean, you just have to go back to, for example, the golden age of Islam. And of course, we have, a lot of countries that have majority Christians that are also incredibly peaceful. And so there's that. As Jones' research, right, explains that it's important to note that all these findings are similar in Islam with the Quran and Christianity with the Bible. Muslim participants were peaceful when they were accurate in their knowledge of the Quran, or at least honest about what they didn't know, and supported violence when they were overconfident in their knowledge of the Quran. Identical findings emerged for Christian participants with the Bible. So basically, fundamentalists of any stripe who are either ignorant or capitalize on other people's ignorance of the holy books are able to use that to be able to promote violence, terrorism, or bigotry, of course, in the name of their god or gods. And that's, I think, the logical conclusion that you could draw from this. And so, I mean, again, using an example of Christianity, right? Many of the Christian right, they'll say, even though they haven't really read the entirety of the Bible and they like to cherry pick, they'll go to church and they'll say, well, I'm a great Christian, but then go and shame the poor, attack the gay community, the LGBT community, trans people, and attack liberals while also claiming to be godly. When in reality, Jesus didn't give a shit if you were gay or trans or whatever. Jesus cared if you were rich. There's one thing, right? And not in a good way. He didn't think that you were better because you were rich. No. He said that you were worse if you're a rich person. He said, if you want to walk with me, give away all your stuff to the poor. If you're poor in life, but if you follow my example, then you will be rewarded with riches in heaven, because it turns out you cannot take your earthly wealth with you. I mean, not only that, but of course, Jesus, some of the stories around him said that he healed the lepers for free, hung out with prostitutes and social outcasts. And so that's not exactly what you would get from the modern right-wing conservative Christian. And so leftist Christians, they're more knowledgeable of the Bible because they tend to live more of the good parts of it. And again, there are good, bad parts of old religious books. And what we should do is we should find and elevate the best parts of them and really kind of build them as part of our movement. As I said before, I'm not a religious person, right? But I think, and this is as Michael Brooks had been talking about, there's a lack of spirituality on the left, and it kind of gets us detached from each other. And what we need to do is we need to be more humanist, right? And what I mean by that is to really take those positive lessons that you get from some of these holy books, and that deal with taking care of each other, and a shared common like humanity that we have for each other, right? And really build on that. And I agree with that, and we shouldn't shun people who are religious and spiritual, so long as they, obviously my big litmus test is, hey, religion is fine as long as you don't use that religion to hurt others. And so leftist Christians, you are an important part of our movement. And, that's it. Solidarity. It's all about solidarity. It's all about being, like making sure that we build an inclusive leftist movement that involves everyone who wants real progress. So I think to me, that's really the important thing to take, I think, from this. And other than the fact that when and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, people who are ignorant and have no interest in actually reading and learning about their own religion are going to tend to be more ignorant in life and possibly more violent towards things that they don't understand. Okay. I think that's it. That's all I got. I cannot get to that climate change story yet. Man, I'm going to have to try to get to that tomorrow. Okay. Let's see. Let me just see if some of these comments here. Super chats. Anonymous says, I hope this goes toward a new computer. Every little bit helps. Thank you. And also, hold on. So, another reason I need a new computer.
Tighten up my meat.
There we go. I pressed that like 30 seconds ago.
I like my meat tight.
Okay. Definitely got to get a new computer. All right. Thank you, Anonymous, by the way. And Adrian Benefield says, Vin Diesel is Jesus and the hanged and delirious. Oh, that's good. I like that. That's really good. Let's see. Sad times when climate stories are not urgent enough due to everything else. Oh, don't worry. This is just a warm-up. Climate change is the ultimate problem. Okay. The first scientists were religious scholars. You're absolutely right. And they tried to understand the world around them using scientific method. And there's no, and you can't, you can be a scientist and still be a believer. It's just, yeah, you can't do that to the soundboard. I could probably do that. All right. I gotta get going, guys. Thank you again for watching the show. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Become a patron or channel member, all that stuff. And okay, that's it. Love you guys. Remember, change begins with you. Good night. See you tomorrow.
Tighten up my meat.
Please clap.
Tolerate.
They're kicking me out the door.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.